Three suspects wearing scarves over their faces.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having us. Thanks for taking out the time. We want to start from the beginning. Let us know how young you were when you started, what inclined you towards what you do, and then we talk about your influences.
Okay. The first time I had ever been in the studio, I was 17. I was in a high school band, and went into it 5 minutes from here. Went in a little Sarah Module into a little studio. Did some demos one day, and then I absolutely fell in love with it and worked 2 jobs that summer to save up money to do more demos. And I actually just did scratch guitar and a scratch vocal, and then hung out in the control room and watched the engineer, and just was like, I would do that every 5 or 6 months. And I would pay for everything, and I would do 1 scratch and just hang out in control and watch.
Wow.
And then I bought a little 4-track. My ex-wife and I had our first son very young at 17. Moved out at 18, and I put my little 4-track in our little 1-bedroom house behind the door. And on weekends, I would give her like 25 or 30 bucks. When her sister would come, they'd take the baby out, and I would bring in bands and record bands in my little 1-bedroom house, like 18 or 19. And
wow.
And that's how I started. Then went to school. Decided this was it. This is what I wanted to do. Found a school called Trebas, which is no longer in the U.S. It's a Canadian school. Went through their program and just started working at local studios in L.A. Echo Sound, Red Zone, Soundcastle, Milagro, Rumbo, and just kind of started moving up the ladder until I became an independent, and love it still to this day.
Brilliant. That's nice to know. It's nice to know that you had humble beginnings, and the fact that you took the initiative yourself, I mean, to go hire studios, and the fact that you were so passionate that there was no other way to access all of that, that you took out your own money to to go and do that. That's pretty credible. That's excellent.
I knew when I was in control room, I knew right away.
Right.
I don't want to be on the other side of that glass anymore. I want to be here.
Brilliant.
It was turning knobs. I had no idea. I would just sit there and watch, make mental notes, and I brought a notepad and would write questions down that I wanted to ask the engineer after the session, and didn't want to and then just saved up and went and did it again, to the point where I knew what he was doing. By the 3rd or 4th time, I kind of had an idea what he was doing, and he liked the fact, so he would invite me over for sessions hey, we're doing drums, when you come and hang out, and I would sit in the background, offer to go get coffee, offer to go get food, and just sit and watch. Wow. And that was it.
So you were willing to do anything. I mean, it's part of, this is what I want our students to know also, that it's part of being in a studio. You have to do everything, and people do everything from, sweeping the floors to getting coffee to, management to, to running errands.
Exactly. I've done everything from clean toilets in studios.
Oh my God.
Wiring cables. I was a night manager at one studio, so I had to deal with trying to get money from clients at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was cleaning tape machines, stocking tape, keeping inventory of tape back then. Like, who was in Tupac? These are Tupac's tapes, put these over here. These are Ice Cube's tapes, put them over there. And just getting sessions ready before anybody came in. And then food, coffee. Walked the dog one time.
Wow.
Walked a client's dog one time.
You had to do that too.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. So David, could you tell me about some of the great records you worked in, or artists that you work with that our audience might know?
Okay. Yeah. Let's see. I did the first Papa Roach record. That's Infest. That's kind of where it kind of blew up a little bit. But before that, I worked with Weezer on Pinkerton, Guns N' Roses, Chinese Democracy. I was the first engineer when they went and hit the studio on that. Before that, oh man, who else was there? LA Guns. Later on, War. I did the Stain record, Break the Cycle. That was actually #1 on Billboard.
Wow.
Here in the U.S. Been working with Queen Latifah.
Wow.
Swayze, Jadakiss, Rudy Paris. We just did a record for.
Wow.
Louis Prima Jr. What else is there? There's a ton of bands you've never heard of.
Okay.
But then there are tons. Powerman 5000, Orgy,
wow.
Stabbing Westward. I'm sure a lot of heavier rock stuff. But then I've done some pop things too.
Okay.
Charisse,
right.
Who was signed to David Foster's label.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite a huge discography of artists that we work with. Now, of course, to understand your sound, we must go back to the past and understand your influences. What did you listen to when you were growing up?
Oh, growing up, listen to just Kiss from the age of 5.
Wow.
Hit 5, Kiss Alive 2, and that's how I kind of learned it. As you're studying reading as a kid, I was reading the liner notes. What is a mastering engineer? What is an engineer? What is a producer? What are these studios? But it was a lot of Kiss, Cheap Trick, Led Zeppelin, the Beatles, Motley Crue, Rat, a lot of LA rock stuff, Van Halen. And then I actually grew up listening to, which, as a kid, you kind of reject what your parents listened to and what they liked. And at like 12 and 13, I found Aretha Franklin, Marvin Gaye, Jackie Wilson, Al Green, and absolutely fell in love with all of that.
Brilliant.
And then later on, it was some jazz stuff. Little Jimmy Scott, piano player.
Yeah.
He just passed away. Worked with him a while back. It was a long time ago. So you just the people you work with kind of influence you. So Steve Ray Vaughan is a huge influence. The Blues, Muddy Waters, Helen Wolf.
Wow.
It kind of runs a gamut. Billie Holiday. Yeah.
So one can say that you're a very diverse producer, engineer. You have a lot of interest in various genres. Although, yeah, of course, rock and heavier styles, metal and stuff seem to be something you're heavily influenced by, and those are the kind of clientele you have. Yet you've grown up listening to a lot of R&B. You've grown up listening to a lot of great artists from jazz and alternative stuff. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's quite a huge palette of.
Yeah, it influences what I do too. Because I'll have a heavier rock band, and I'll give them like, hey, try this, and it might be a little vocal run that I stole from Marvin Gaye. Oh. And anything that has, whether it's heavy music, as long as it has some kind of soul to it and you can kind of believe it, that's kind of what I'm looking for. Something that you believe what the artist is saying. And Marvin Gaye is my favorite artist of all time. It's like Jeff Buckley, another one, number 2. Yeah, so it's very soulful stuff.
So David, tell us about the fact or the transition that you made from working on huge SSL and Neve boards and having all of that arsenal of gear and stuff at your disposal to now being in a workspace which is digital. And so we know that analog gives you a lot of color and digital is something which is you have a lot of choices. But how have you made that transition? Is there any specific stuff you use? And do you think that you can still build something with this kind of a setup compared to what you're used to working with at bigger studios?
Oh yeah, consoles are awesome. I love old Neves, 8068s, SSLs. But it's always, to me, I call myself a front end guy. That's the front end. The guitar, the musician, the amp is the front end. It goes through that console to tape, and it's the same thing. But now it's digital. Now I'm a still front end guy. So we have Marshalls, Oranges, Riveras, Les Pauls. They're going through still great modular pieces of gear with the API. We've got the APIs, the Neve, the little lab compressor.
Yeah.
So, Chandler compressor,
yeah.
Little Devil.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a front end guy. If we can make it sound great going in, it's going to sound great coming through speakers.
Right.
So that's my focus is like get it sounding great, and you don't need those big consoles. You do. I mean, they're awesome. They're great because just you can spread it out.
The workflow, yeah.
It's a lot of. It's easier to do things. You can grab something and turn it down instead of grabbing the mouse. But now, you can do all of that in Pro Tools and with this. It's that simple. It really is. I mean, I've got an '87 Royers 57s, Neve, API, Marshalls. The same thing you would find at Conway, at NRG, at Capitol, at East West. The same gear you're going to have there, except now it's in a 500 rack and in this very cozy room that you're not paying $2,000 a day for. So and we're still doing great records, still doing great sounding records. I've had a couple records coming out here that entered the Billboard charts we did them here.
Wow, that's great to know, and I think for our audience that's another great message, because they get to realize that it's possible, and it's more now about the skill and the technique than it is just about gears. Earlier, it was just that if you could enter a big studio and have a big production, that you would get that sound. But today, it's more about your vision, what you want, and with select pieces of gear, you can still achieve pretty much the same result, or probably a better result, because you have digital, which allows you to go back and forth. Exactly. And change stuff around, and recall, which
and
seems
recall,
to be
oh, recall, yeah, exactly.
I like your face, lighting up and glowing for the amount of work you do in a day and the amount of bands you're simultaneously artists you're working with. It's the biggest boon that one can have.
I've done three things in one day. Do a recall for a mix in the morning, bring up the session, tweak it, send it off, do a vocal in the afternoon with another artist on a session that we've already started, and then start editing on a third session that day. So it's so easy. It is workflow. And when you have your own little place like this, you can do that. And if you have great pieces of gear, you can get it to sound like you were at cello. A guitar doesn't know if it's in a cello or if it's in my little room here. As long as it's had an 87 or a Royer in front of it going through an API or an Eve, it doesn't know. It's going to sound great. Yeah. And it is about the artist, the vision.
Right. Absolutely. David, show us the beautiful API rack you have here, and you've got beautiful modules here. Why have you selected certain modules, and what do they do?
Well, see, I have two Eisens here, which are Neve style mic pre's, custom mic pre's. I love Neve stuff, so I had to have two Neve. And then with the two Brent Averill APIs, it's guitar heaven right there. That's all you need for any clean guitars, heavy guitars, acoustic guitars. I use a lot of the percussion. It's great. Then I had to get the Neve and the Chandler little double compressor. I mean, this is bass. Usually Neve I use bass and vocal, and I try to set up everything as I go. So I'll have guitars, bass, and I kind of round robin the artist, so no one's getting bored and we're always working and accomplishing something. And that's what you can do with this little rack here. The Neve is just the Neve is. Without question.
I also see the Apollo.
Do
you like it? What do you think about it?
I absolutely love it. We had a 192s at our old studio that we sold about 6 months ago, and we're kind of like, well, what do we get? Do we go back to the one to get the new Avid stuff? And we did some research, and my partner and I decided the Apollo, and it's been great. It's been absolutely a workhorse. It's just everything's going out of here, line in. Into the so this is our front end, but then we still have 4 pretty cool sounding mic pre's in the Apollo, and it's a great workflow.
And also the fact that you can probably add plugins while going in. So does that help you?
The
UA plugins are the real key too.
I treat it like tapes though. I EQ and compress going in, so it's printed that way and it sounds that way, and that's the way I want it to sound. Coming back, so I don't have to mess with it later on. So I do have, just the SSL bundle, Neves, every APIs that I'm using when I'm not coming through here, I can compress there if I'm not using the little devil. So yeah, it's exactly it.
That's brilliant. There's another nice piece of vintage monitoring we see here, which is the NSNs. These seem to be like a standard with pros like yourself. Yeah. Can you tell me why you have them? I
have them because every studio I've ever worked at has always had them. I was at Capitol recently, and I listened almost exclusively, personally, off the NS10s. And it's the old adage: every industry guys have ever heard it before. It's like if you can make it sound like a record coming off that, it's going to sound great anywhere else. And that's my thing. It's like I've done two records at Capitol back to back and listened fairly at a decent level coming on at their NS10s, and the biggest eye thrill I get is when the artist goes, that sounds like a record already, and we're just tracking. There's no EQ, nothing's going on, it's not being processed yet, and it's coming off the NS10s. That means I did my job right. Brilliant. So that's the reason why you have them. Exactly. Let's look at some guitar cabinets and amps you have back here, and just tell us about what you use. And Marshall 800 is without, that's Hendrix, that's Slash, that's everybody, all the great guitar players. Orange is another one of my favorites. The AD-30 thing is awesome. It's Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, everything. And then the Riveras is a new piece we've had in here for maybe 6 months, but that thing has been a workhorse. So between the three, there's also a couple of Fenders in the other room, Fender combos that I love for the clean stuff. You can't go wrong. That 87, 57 Royer Neves API, it's anything you can want, and it's going to sound brilliant.
Brilliant. So cool to see your gear and let you explain what you use and how you use it. It's brilliant, fantastic. So David, thank you for that gear trip and your specific stuff that you use. It's brilliant. It's beautiful. I want to ask you something. You're doing a lot of things. I mean, you're wearing many hats here. You're a composer, you're a producer, you're a musician, you're a mixing engineer, you're a mastering engineer. So what's that one thing that there has to be one which you favor, which is like close to your heart? So tell us about it.
One, and it's without question, is engineer. Like, I love getting tones. I love tracking. I love live tracking. I love seeing the musicians in the studio. I love the, and it's a good what's the term I'm looking for? It's a good pressure to have musicians in there and to get the right tone and to have everybody and if something goes wrong, they look to you. If something goes right, they look to the producer. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. I love
funny. But engineers don't get enough credit, huh?
No, actually, but when someone says, "Hey, that drum tone sounds amazing," that's your compliment.
Yeah.
That guitar tone. So I love engineering. I love getting tones. I love. I was at Capitol recently and had a rack of gear on the credenza with more gear in there to be able to go, let's use this on that. I had, for piano, I had C24s, 67s into a Fairchild. And I was like, oh,
wow.
That, I was in heaven. I just love it. Full text, Fairchild, that was me. That was heaven. I was like, I didn't have to worry about anything other than getting great tones.
Right.
I love it all. Like I do a lot of indie bands, and they're looking, for arrangements. And I love it all. And once that's all done, then I can focus on getting tones. That's where I'm happy. When everybody's tracking live, that's where I get. I love it. It's just the point. It's a passion, or I dream of. When I'm not here doing it, I'm on YouTube looking at other people's sessions. Because I just love it so much.
Wow. So you're always constantly also exploring what else is out there.
Oh, definitely.
That's great, David.
Namaste. My name is David Dominguez, and here at Gaurav for the Beatfactory Academy interview. I hope we all enjoy it. Thank you very much for having me.
We have 3 suspects wearing scarves over their faces.